Magandang araw po sa inyo! Welcome po sa isa na namang episode ng online series ni Inang Pamantasan kung saan ang pagkatuto ay walang hangganan. Ito ang PNU Talks. Ako nga pala si Shila Pastor at ako ang inyong Learning from Home buddy sa episode na ito. Ngayong araw ay aalamin natin ang tungkol sa science literacy. I-comment ang inyong mga katanungan at mga kuro-kuro tungkol sa ating episode ngayong araw. Huwag din kalimutang i-like at i-share ang episode natin. Para sa episode natin ito, aalamin natin ang lahat tungkol sa science literacy. Ang episode ay pinamagatang Science Literacy Through the Looking Glass. So what do you mean by looking glass? So in the literal sense, the looking glass is any surface that can reflect. So technically, it's a mirror, okay? So a looking glass is just another way of saying it's a mirror. And then when we say looking through a looking glass, in psychology, there is also what we call looking glass theory, wherein it tells us about how other people perceive us, okay? So, para sa episode natin ito, Science Literacy Through the Looking Glass, ang gagawin natin ay tignan maigi kung ano ang science literacy, alamin kung paano natin magagamit ang science literacy sa ating pang-araw-araw na pagdedesisyon at kung ano magagawa nito para sa atin. So let's start. Let's talk about literacy. So, does being knowledgeable in science equate to being scientifically literate? But we have a perception about science that it's all about facts, all about concepts, di ba? Usually, naiisip natin kapag ang tao magaling sa science, medyo iba siya sa pangkaraniwang mga tao. Di ba? Yun yung naiisip natin kapag ang mga tao ay into the sciences. So does being knowledgeable in science always equate to being scientifically literate? According to the Pew Research Center, wherein they did a survey back in 2014, they asked some knowledge questions to the Americans about science. So some of the questions are, Earth's core is the hottest layer, uranium is needed to make nuclear energy or nuclear weapons, a comet has icy core and tail of gas and dust. Okay, so those are some of the questions. And according to the survey, the Americans did well and were able to get a high percentage, or they were able to get the answers correctly. Okay. In 2019, another survey was done. This time around, questions are still about science. So what they know and don't know about science. So it's about life sciences, earth and other physical science, numeracy and chart reading, and scientific process. So this time around, it is no longer limited to knowledge questions or concept questions, okay? Still, they have high percentage of getting the answer correctly. However, it is slightly lower from the previous survey that they did. So having this high percentage of correct answers, does it mean that these people who answered correctly are already considered scientifically literate? So in the Philippines, when we talk about science literacy, one of the first things that comes into mind was our performance in the 2018 Program for International Student Assessment, or the PISA, wherein the science literacy scale that we got, or the average score that we got for that exam, was 357, which is second to the last, okay? Nothing to be proud of. And this also made us very concerned with our students. From the same exam, we also learned, or it shows, that most of our 15-year-old students are in the low level to proficiency level. Meaning, from level 1 to 6 of the PISA, most of our students, 15-year-old students, are within below level 2. Okay, that's 70%. So it was quite alarming to receive this kind of result from the international exam. Despite the fact that the K-12 science curriculum envisions the development of a scientifically, technologically, and environmentally literate and productive members of the society. So what does it really mean? Diba? What does it really mean to say when we say a person is scientifically literate? So, kailan ba natin siya masasabing scientifically literate siya? So, pag mataas ang score, or is there something else that is related to scientific literacy? According to Durant, 1994, scientific literacy should not be taken to mean the knowledge of a lot of science, but rather the understanding of how science really works. It was supported, or almost the same definition was given by Kirschenbaum 2019, wherein in the article, scientific literacy was defined as a person who can ask, find, or determine answers to questions derived from curiosity about everyday experiences. It means that a person has the ability to explain and predict natural phenomena. OECD also has their own definition of scientific literacy, which is actually very close to the first two definitions already. So for OECD, scientific literacy is defined as an individual's scientific knowledge and use of that knowledge to identify questions, acquire new knowledge, explain scientific phenomena, draw evidence-based conclusions about science-related issues, understand the characteristic features of science as a form of human knowledge and inquiry, develop awareness of how science and technology shape our material, intellectual, and cultural environments, and exhibit willingness to engage in science-related issues and with the ideas of science as a reflective citizen. In short, it's getting the facts and being able to discern fact from opinion or myth, and then using those facts to make a decision. So that's really what science literacy is about. This was stated by Lodell and Balschweid in their articles, What is Science Literacy and Why is it Important? So from the definitions of science literacy, it is more than just facts. It is more than just knowing some of the concepts in science, okay? It's more of applying and using those facts in decision making. So now let's look at science literacy in action. So how do we see science literacy in our everyday life? First, science literacy affects cultures and improves our ways. As of February 17, 2016, a total of 14,122 cases of Ebola virus disease and 3,955 Ebola-related deaths have been reported in Sierra Leone since the epidemic in West Africa that began in 2014. According to an article, they know that the Ebola virus is transmitted person to person through direct contact with blood, body fluids, or contaminated clothing and other personal items of symptomatic or diseased patients. Traditional funeral practices, including washing and touching the corpse, pose a substantial risk for Ebola transmission. So what was added in the report was that a single traditional funeral of a prominent pharmacist was associated with a sharp increase in the number of Ebola cases in a previously low incidence district of Sierra Leone. So what happened? In Sierra Leone, they are doing this funeral ceremonies wherein they touch the dead. So in that article, it showed that the dead person or the person that died because of the Ebola virus was touched by a lot of people, and all these people were found to be positive with the Ebola virus. And aside from that, from those people who touched the dead person, they also ended up being dead. Okay. So what was the practice? The practice was they are the ones bathing, cleaning, and dressing the body, okay, in its favorite outfit. So meaning they would have to literally touch and be in contact with the dead person. And then after which the funeral would have to last for days, depending on the status of the deceased person. meaning as long as the person is within the area, chances of getting the virus from that person will also be higher. Lastly, before they bury the deceased, they have this ritual of a common bowl that is being used for a ritual hand washing and the final touch or kiss on the face of the corpse. So literally touching and kissing would mean that the virus on that deceased person would automatically be transmitted to whoever touched and kissed that dead person. So because of that practice, because of that ritual that they do, the Ebola virus has been transmitted at an alarming rate. Okay. However, despite knowing that that is how the transmission is, okay, there is a little bit there's a reluctance from the people because that's tradition. Diba? We know naman tradition. It's really hard to break away from what we have from our own tradition. So kung ano yung mga kinagisnan natin, di ba, nadadala pa rin natin hanggang sa pagtanda. Same with them. It was their tradition to do the funeral rites or the rituals. And they do feel strongly about these traditions. Kaya kahit alam nila, yan, masama sa loob nila na hindi nila nagagawa yung ritual na iyon. Pero syempre dahil according to science, according to the doctors, according to the scientists, the experts in their place, that's how the virus gets transmitted. So it has to be stopped. Okay? So for our case in the Philippines, diba, we also have our traditions and different ways of life. Before pandemic, before the COVID-19 came about, right? We are usually found outside, stuck in traffic most of the time, diba? We do travel different places. We Filipinos seem to love traveling a lot, celebrating festivals, and along with the celebration of the festivals, we are into sharing of food, yung mga budol fight. Yan, sharing of food in one serving. And then, of course, we have the tradition of pagmamano, showing of respect to the elderly. When COVID-19 struck, this culture, this ways of life has suddenly stopped and changed because experts said that you cannot be in places with a lot of people. You cannot easily eat together with other people, especially if you are not from the same household. It is not advised to have a gathering, mass gathering. Especially, that being said, syempre wala na festivals, yung traffic naglaho, di ba? Lahat ng tao kailangan ma-quarantine, lahat nasa loob ng bahay. And then, the pagmamano has been limited now to the immediate household, to whoever is within the household. Hindi mo na siya pwedeng gawin. Every time you see an elderly in your family, especially kung hindi sila within your household, tapos sila ay senior citizen o kaya may comorbidity, it's also our way of protecting them. Okay, so because of knowing about the COVID-19 and how it gets transmitted, our ways of life have changed. Another example of how science literacy allows people to reflect on the benefits, disadvantages, and limitations of science. So, have you heard of the pesticide, about the DDT pesticide? So, back in the 1940s, this pesticide, the DDT pesticide, became very famous because it was very effective in killing insects, especially in agricultural areas, ganyan yung mga mosquitoes, kasi it's, at that time, mataas yung rate ng malaria. Kaya kailangan ng insecticide, kailangan ng pesticides, rather. And DDT was a very effective pesticide. And because of this, yan, dahil very effective siya, nangyari, yung mga tao, yung ginagawa, ini-spray siya sa lahat ng lugar na may possible possible na pagbahayan ng insects. Okay? Lahat. And then, came the instance also na may advertisement na lumabas na ang DDT ay okay para sa mga tao. So, hindi na lang ngayon agricultural areas ang in-spray ng DDT. Ini-spray na rin pati yung mga tao, as you can see in this picture. Okay? So, yun yung naging practice. Now, 13 years later, in 1958, Carson's interest in writing about the dangers of DDT was rekindled when she received a letter from a friend bemoaning the large bird kills that occurred in Cape Cod as a result of DDT spraying. So, nung nagkaroon na ngayon ng massive death of birds because of the pesticide, the Rachel Carson is now triggered to communicate the dangers of DDT. Okay, so she tried every time to say that DDT is not a good chemical. It can cause dangers to people. So the book was known as The Silent Spring by Rachel Carson, wherein it tells the dangers of DDT. So around 1970s, the use of DDT has been banned. So the other picture here is the advertisement saying that the DDT is beneficial not only in killing the insects but also for the people. So ito yung advertisement na nag-lead to people thinking na okay din ang DDT para sa tao. So because of science literacy, syempre, nakita yung libro ni Rachel Carson, it has allowed for people to reflect, di ba? Na hindi pala siya pwede, kailangan natin siyang iban, kailangan natin siyang palitan. Very much the same as to how CFCs, diba? Use of CFCs has been banned due to the thinning of the ozone layer. Yun. Isa pa siyang, katulad siya ng ganitong event ng kay Rachel Carson. Another thing about science literacy, it entails being able to read with understanding articles about science in the popular press and to engage in social conversation about the validity of the conclusions. So if a person is scientifically literate, hindi ka madaling mapapaniwala na mga makikita mo sa news or sa internet, especially now that we are in the digital age, a lot of information is easily accessible. But that would also mean that a lot of information can no longer be easily filtered. So may mga mahalong, mga scientific-looking articles na paniniwalain tayo or ipropromote ang kanilang mga beliefs, such as, the example is this one. This is to ban the DHMO. What is the DHMO? DHMO is, ang sabi nila dito, it's dihydrogen monoxide. In chemical equation form, that's H2O. And we know H2O is water. Okay, so ang grupong ito, they are petitioning to ban the use of water. Okay, na dangerous daw ang water. As stated here in the picture, highly active solvent, vapor is the most potent greenhouse gas, exposure can result in severe burns. So the explanations actually is correct, diba? Kasi water vapor is really a potent gas. If you are exposed to steam, makakasunog naman talaga siya. Pero kasi we also know that water is water, diba? Yun naman ay essential naman para sa atin. Okay. So another infographic about it is this one. So deadly facts about dihydrogen monoxide, aka H2O or water. So here are some of the things they are saying, that 100% of the people exposed to dihydrogen monoxide will die. All serial killers have admitted to the use of dihydrogen monoxide, so forth and so on. So because of the term or the use of dihydrogen monoxide, it makes it sound so sounds chemical. Yun yung statement dito. Just because something sounds chemical doesn't necessarily mean it is necessarily bad for you, diba? Parang yung kanina, DDT, bad siya. Pero yung dihydrogen monoxide, hindi porket chemical, yung manner ng pagkakapresent sa kanya ay yung statement is sounding very chemical. Hindi siya dangerous. Okay? So, being scientifically literate can help us in discerning which is which, di ba? Is it really dangerous? Is it not dangerous? So it helps if you are scientifically literate. Okay, so be a science literate. Think critically. You don't have to be a scientist to base your decisions on science. Just like you don't need a math degree to keep track of your personal spending. So kailangan din natin talaga ang scientific literacy para hindi tayo, so that we will not easily be blinded by self-proclaimed experts is the term. Another benefit of being scientifically literate is that we don't get lost in translation and interpretation. This one is an article explaining as to why a lot of people has been caught in the Typhoon Yolanda back in 2013, di ba? Dami namatay, dami nasira, hindi nakapag-evacuate. So, what they are saying, as stated in the article, storm surge, loss in translation and interpretation. What they're saying is that the government, they did give the warnings, diba? They informed the people there will be a storm surge, they would have to evacuate, there is a strong typhoon, so forth and so on. However, since the people are not so familiar with the term storm surge, they did not think that it would be deadly. Okay? So, naisip nila, ay, malakas na bagyo lang yan. Okay lang yan kahit nandito na tayo sa bahay, hindi natin kailangang umalis. Okay? Ang kaso, hindi nila alam kasi ang ibig sabihin ng storm surge. So, nagulat sila na may bulk of water ngayon na pumasok dun sa, or na tumama dun sa area, which caused the deaths of a lot of people. Okay, so yun yung sinasabi ng mga tao na if there was a problem, it's the lack of understanding of the definition and effects of a storm surge. Okay, there was proper warning, however, it was on the interpretation and the use of the data that was lost talaga. Hindi naintindihan ng mga tao. Ang sinasabi pa ng mga tao dyan, kung sinabi lang sa amin na magkakaroon ng tsunami, di sana umalis kami. Yun yung statement nila. Although looking the same, di ba? Tsunami is a huge wave of water coming in. Tsunami and storm surge are essentially different because of its origin. Kasi ang storm surge, ang origin yan ay typhoons, ang tsunami, ang origin ng earthquake. So talagang hindi gagamitin ng experts ang word na tsunami back then. Kasi ang tamang word na gamitin ay storm surge. However, mga tao, mas kilala ang term na tsunami. So, yun yung sinasabi nila na kung yun yung ginamit, mas naintindihan nila. Yan. Okay? So, if you're scientifically literate, people would have had a better understanding of what the warnings back then. Okay? So similar to the banning of the water earlier, this one is a group that believes that the earth is flat. So sila yung flat earthers. Okay? So in 2017, the US rapper B.O.B. started a crowdfunding campaign to launch a satellite wherein he seeks evidence that our planet is a disk, not a globe. Okay? They are part of the Flat Earth Society. So dito, ang iniisip nila, the Earth is flat. So despite evidences or kahit anong sabihin ninyong support that the Earth is an oblate spheroid, the Flat Earth Society will not believe you. So sabihin lang nila, it's those who are believing that the Earth is a globe is the one that is believing in a conspiracy. Okay? So meron pa silang mga proofs. Flat Earth, 18 proofs. Earth is not a spinning ball. And then, up until now, scientists, physicists are still fighting against the Flat Earth theory. So hindi siya madaling mawala, di ba? Again, that is despite all the evidences showing that the Earth is an oblate spheroid or a globe. Okay, so may visualization si NASA, nagla-launch na tayo ng mga satellites, ng space shuttles. And then the ISS, International Space Stations, may binibigyan na silang pictures yung mga astronauts doon, showing the curvature of the Earth. Okay? And syempre yung mga spacewalks, yan. So nakikita as their background si Earth, showing that it's spherical or it's a globe. Okay. So despite all these evidences, a flat earther or someone who doesn't believe that the Earth is a globe will just neglect you. Hindi ka paniniwalaan niya. Okay, so ikaw, para sa kanila, ikaw ay naniniwala sa isang conspiracy. Okay? So in this part, we need scientific literacy. Sino ang paniniwalaan mo, di ba? You already have the evidences that the Earth is a globe, that the Earth is an oblate spheroid. So is it still not enough for you to believe that there is, or that the Earth is not flat? Okay? So same thing, yan. The Earth being not flat, or the banning of water, okay, yung mga kanina, we also have, so those are showing us differences in opinion, okay? And that differences in opinion is evident in almost all the issues or topics or things that we do in our society that is science related. Okay? For example, here, again, the Pew Research Center has conducted a survey showing the differences of opinion of the public versus the scientists on the different issues that is science related. Example, safe to eat genetically modified foods. So among the public, so sa mga in-interview, tinanong, ganyan. Only 37% of the public believes that genetically modified foods are safe to eat. But if they ask scientists, 88% of them believe that it is safe to eat. GMOs are safe to eat. Okay, so there is a big difference between the belief of an adult and the belief of a scientist. Same thing, favor of use of animals in research. 47% of the public are in favor, 89% of the scientists are in favor. Safe to eat foods grown with pesticides. Ito, mas mababa lalo kapag sa public tinanong. So 28% lang ang naniniwala that it's safe to eat foods with pesticides, but 68% of the scientists are saying it is. Okay? Humans evolve over time. This one, we have a higher percent. 65% of the public believes this, and almost 98, almost 100% scientists believes that humans have evolved over time, and so forth and so on. So speaking of GMO, the survey also asked, if the scientists have a clear understanding of the health effects of the GMO. So according to the US adults, they believe that the scientists are not clear about their understanding of the health effects of GM crops. And that they believe only 57% believe that it is generally unsafe to eat genetically modified foods. Okay, so mataas talaga yung pinagkaiba. Kasi 57% ang ayaw sa genetically modified food kasi unsafe daw siya. Pero kapag scientists ang tinanong, around 88% ang nag-agree na safe naman siya. Okay. Still on GMO, or genetically modified food, so scientific literacy implies that a person can identify scientific issues underlying national and local decisions and express positions that are scientifically and technologically informed. Okay, so if we are scientifically literate, we can answer surveys such as this with better perspective. So this survey here was done by OSU, or Oklahoma State University, wherein they asked the people whether they support or oppose the following government policies. So we have here tax on sugar sodas, ban on the sale of marijuana, ban on the sale of food products made with trans fat, ban on the sale of raw unpasteurized milk, so forth and so on. Then let's see what is highlighted here. They are, so mandatory labels on food containing DNA shows that 80% of the people that was surveyed support this government policy and 20% do not. If we think of it, or if we think about this, DNA is present in all living things. So, meron bang pagkain na walang DNA? Diba? Yun yung tanong. May pagkain bang walang DNA? So, pag binasa mo ito, parang may mali sa tanong. Okay? Well, that is why, because of that particular question, news. It made it to the news, wherein headlines states that OSU survey, people worry DNA is in their food. So according to Jason Lusk, I don't interpret this as a deeply held belief, but I think it does speak a little bit about a lack of knowledge of biology and biotechnology. Kasi nga, thinking about it, DNA is part of any living thing. So kung pagkain yan at galing naman yung sa living thing, di ba? Lahat yan may DNA. Okay? Another headline, are Americans really dumb enough to worry about food containing DNA? So in this particular news, sinasabi naman dito, it's more of how the survey was communicated. Okay, so posibleng hindi pareho yung pagkakaintindi ng mga tao nung binasa nila yung survey sa intention ng survey. Still on the topic of genetically modified foods, here in the Philippines, the golden rice was first introduced way back around 2015, 14, something like that. Yung introduction of the golden rice wherein it is said to address malnutrition. Okay. However, kasi nga genetically modified siya, if people are not well informed about its benefits, they tend to go against it. So, ayan, madaming rallies, ayaw nilang magkaroon ng golden rice, stop daw ang golden rice. So, ang nangyari, yung mga tao na kung saan nag-start or nagta-try mag-grow ng golden rice, sinugod ng mga tao yung place at sinira nila yung facility or yung lugar kung saan yung mga pinagtataniman. Kasi nga, hindi well-informed ang mga tao that the golden rice can be an answer for malnutrition. Okay? Pero ngayon, of course, with much information dissemination na nagaganap, the golden rice now is its status now here in the Philippines, it is already allowed for planting. So, di ba, it took some time bago din naman siya natanggap ng mga tao na okay lang ang genetically modified foods. So the differences in opinion is not limited to the medical or health sciences or in biotechnology or genetically modified foods. It's also evident in climate, energy, space sciences, one of which is the disparity between what the people believe or the public believe about change, it being mostly due to human activity. So 50% of the public believes this and 87% of the scientists believes this. So hindi pareho pa rin, di ba? Hindi lahat ng tao or hindi lahat ng public, part of the public, believes that climate change is due to human activity. Because of this, meron pa rin tayong nag-o-oppose dun sa idea ng climate change, or they believe that climate change is not real, it's a fraud, it's a hoax, diba? Despite the evidences that is being given by the experts. Aside from that, growing world population will be a major problem. 59% ang public naniniwala dito, 82% sa scientists, and then favor building more nuclear power plants, 45% for the public, 65% for the scientists, so forth and so on. Dito magkabaliktad sila. Favor more offshore drilling. Only 32% of the scientists are agreeing to this one or are in favor of offshore drilling, while 52% of the public is in favor of offshore drilling. Still, the difference in the opinions of the scientists and the public is great, diba? Very evident siya. Hindi, maliit lang siya pagdating dun sa dulo. Space station has been a good investment for the US. Pero the rest, medyo kitang-kita natin ang difference ng views ng isang regular person in comparison to that with a scientist. Here in the Philippines, we can also see that with the Bataan Nuclear Power Plant, yung kung gaano tayo ka-in favor of building a nuclear power plant. Diba? It was built around the 1970s, but it never started due to financial reasons and because of possible events that may cause a meltdown for the nuclear power plant. And a meltdown is really dangerous, especially nang natapos yung Bataan Nuclear Power Plant, a year after siyang natapos, nangyari yung Chernobyl na incident, yung meltdown sa Chernobyl. So, mas lalong hindi nabuksan ang Bataan Nuclear Power Plant. Kasi nga, a nuclear meltdown is very dangerous. Matagal mawala ang effects niyan sa isang lugar. So, a lot of people are against or very reason ba't hindi nabuksan ng BNPP kasi nga hindi tayo kumpiyansa sa idea na pag nagkaroon ng nuclear meltdown will we be safe, especially we are in the we have high incidences of earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, okay, malapit ka sa dagat, so madaming pwedeng maging possible cause ng events na pwedeng mag-lead to a meltdown. Pero, okay, scientific literacy now plays a role here. Kasi we also know, okay, or we have to know that a nuclear power plant can be very beneficial. Okay? Kasi yung amount of fuel niya, mas konti ang gamit, kumpara sa, let's say, sa coal, giving the same amount of energy, ganyan. Kung gaano, yung kinakatakutan ba natin about the meltdown, hindi ba siya na-prepare or hindi ba siya yung idea na yung mga tao, yung mga scientists or experts ba that has developed the BNPP, did they not ensure that a meltdown will not occur? So those are some of the questions, okay? So if we become much more scientifically literate when it comes to nuclear power, then maybe we will have a better perspective as to whether we will agree or disagree to the reopening of BNPP. Then from this time around, scientific literacy, ngayon, mas talamak na ang idea ng scientific literacy, especially with the pandemic coming in. So, nag-start yung pandemic, 2020, na-question saan at kailan ba nagsimula ang COVID-19 na yan. Back in 2020, may mga narinig siguro kayo na mga issues, di ba? Or news saying that the COVID-19 virus or the SARS-CoV-2 was originated from a laboratory. So an article was published to refute the claim that it was or it originated from a laboratory. So if we are a scientifically literate citizen, we should be able to evaluate the quality of scientific information on the basis of its source and the methods used to generate it. So according to that particular article, yung sinasabi ng doctor na nakita nila dun sa SARS-CoV-2 na part na yun ay magagawa lang sa laboratory, ayon dun sa group of experts nagsulat itong paper, yung particular spike gene na yun ay hindi naman talaga made sa laboratory. It's actually widely available in coronavirus from a natural source, which is opposite to what was claimed. Yeah. So, kailangan kaya din natin makapag-evaluate. Fake news ba or hindi? Okay? Lalo ngayon, madaming fake news, di ba? Moreover, scientific literacy also implies the capacity to post and evaluate arguments based on evidence to apply conclusions from such arguments. Diba? COVID-19, mataas ang transmission, madami nahahawa, nakamamatay, kailangan ng bakuna. So what are the things that we know about the vaccine? So we know the vaccines are safe. They are also effective. There may be side effects, but they are completely normal. You get the immunization 2 weeks after the second dose. Okay? Vaccines are widely accessible. And people who have been fully vaccinated can start to do some things that they had stopped doing because of the pandemic. Okay, so these are some of the things that we know about the vaccines. Okay, this is according to CDC, or Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. But according to them also, we are still learning. Hindi naman yan sinabi na porket effective, yun na yun, pwede na tayong lumabas ng walang mask or anything like that, diba? Or bumalik na tayo sa dating ginagawa natin na walang care kung tayo ba ay makamask or kung tayo ba ay magagather ng madaming with a lot of people, diba? So we are still learning. They said that we are still learning how well vaccines prevent you from spreading the virus that causes COVID-19 to others, even if you do not have symptoms. We are also still learning how long COVID-19 vaccines protect people, di ba? Kaya nga nagkakaroon ng boosters. We are still learning how many people have to be vaccinated against COVID-19 bago marating yung population immunity. And we are still learning how effective the vaccines are against new variants of the virus that causes COVID-19. So with this information, diba, we still have to be careful. We still have to follow the health protocols to ensure that the transmission of the virus will be lessened. Another news that we may have heard nung nagsa-start ang pandemic, diba? Nung nag-start ang pandemic, we are forced to stay at home, stay in quarantine, and if we are going out, we have to wear face masks, face shields, okay? Because according to the experts, the virus is being transmitted to droplets. And then came the information that there is a potential airborne transmission. Ibig sabihin, hindi na lang siya sa droplets, pwedeng nasa hangin na siya. Yun yung idea. Okay? Now, because of that possibility that the COVID-19 virus can be airborne, ano nangyari? Pinataas, or we had a heightened alert. Okay? So that we have to be very careful, especially when we go out. Dahil hindi rin naman na-refute yung idea ng pagiging airborne, anong nangyari? Bawal na ngayon ang magstay sa mga enclosed areas o yung hindi well-ventilated na lugar. If we are in a room with air conditioning unit, then you stated that the airflow will tell you kung sino yung mga mahahawaan, kung merong infected person dun sa lugar. Okay? So, part of the rules, di ba, sa IFTF rules, hindi pwedeng magsama-sama ang madaming tao, especially if the area is too small, in an enclosed area that is not, or in a not well-ventilated place. Okay? So, ano nangyari? Result, especially in restaurants, nagkaroon ngayon tayo ng alfresco dining. Okay? So, scientifically literate citizens can accommodate new knowledge to evaluate protocols that are implemented. It also allows them to protect and improve their quality of life as well as that of others. Diba? Sabi, bawal sa loob, sa enclosed areas, bawal mag-aircon, ginawa ng mga tao, ginawa ng restaurants, ginawa ng mga kainan, alfresco dining, lahat nilagay sa labas. Okay? Kasi nga naman, pag nasa labas, well-ventilated, di ba? Mahanginan ka, lahat nasa hindi siya hindi ka na ngayon ang idea hindi ka na ngayon madaling mahahawa even if the COVID-19 virus is airborne. So yun yung tumaas yung alert level natin, okay? So lumabas ang mga tao, kung kakain dun sa labas, hindi pwedeng sa enclosed na area, okay? Also, if we are scientifically literate, we can become more analytical and critical when it comes to information. So, nag-start ang COVID-19 virus, kailangan mag-disinfect ng mga bagay-bagay, but it doesn't necessarily mean na pwede mo siyang inumin. So, may kumalat na balita that drinking methanol, ethanol, or bleach can prevent or cure COVID-19. So, nag-fact check ang WHO, hindi yan totoo. Drinking this will lead to disability and death. So, that's a fake news. Okay? Hindi ka gagaling sa COVID kapag uminom ka ng mga ganyan. Mamamatay ka actually kasi nga these are cleaning products that would kill the virus kapag nasa-surfaces, pero ikamamatay mo kapag in-ingest. Another practice, okay, that has been said na hindi naman siya pinipigilan pero hindi siya nakakagamot. 'Di ba? Nung start ng COVID-19, pag nagkakasakit, one of the ways that they said for you to know kung possibility may COVID-19 ka is the breathing, 'di ba? Kung nahihirapan ka huminga. So ang sinuggest na practice is tuob, yung magkukulog ka and then inhale, exhale from the warm water. I think with warm water yan. Parang mas madaling mas madali ka makakahinga. Pero it may alleviate yung difficulty in breathing, pero hindi siya nakakagaling sa COVID-19. So practicing tuob, not prohibited, pero it is not a cure for COVID-19. So technically, hindi naman pinipigilan. Pero it is wrong to believe na siya ay cure for COVID-19. This time around, vaccines. Dahil madami na tayong vaccines, vaccine misinformation naman ang kumakalat. Okay? Some of the myths, COVID-19 vaccine contain microchips, makes you magnetic, it can alter the DNA, or it can make you sick. So all of these are fake news. Hindi po sila totoo. Okay? Walang microchip ang COVID-19. Hindi ka magiging magnetic kapag tinurukan ka ng vaccine. They cannot alter the DNA, okay? Kasi hindi naman sila nagre-react. Ang COVID-19 vaccines are hindi nagre-react sa DNA natin. And most especially, the vaccines cannot make you sick with COVID-19. Kasi hindi naman live virus ang itinuturok sa inyo. It's just part of the virus ang itinuturok para lang siya makilala ng katawan natin at nakapag-create tayo ng antibodies against it. Pero hindi tayo magkakasakit ng COVID-19 kapag tayo ay naturukan ng bakuna. Okay? So, fake news po yun, hindi po yun totoo. Ha? It does not, a COVID-19 vaccine cannot make a person sick with COVID-19. One more fake news, okay? One experience that I encountered. Diba nung nagsa-start pala mag-ease yung quarantine. So, lahat ng restaurants, lahat ng lugar, meron na ngayong mga infrared thermometer. Okay? So, ng mga unang start pa lang, di ba? Ang pag-check ng temperature sa noo. Siyempre, tatapat yung thermometer sa noo. Ganyan. And then, one time, pumasok ako sa isang restaurant na nabibilhin lang. Ang sabi syempre magta-temperature check, di ibababa mo ang face shield. Syempre, at that time, nagka-face shield pa. Bababa mo ang face shield. Ang sabi sa akin nung nag-check ng temperature, hindi na daw sa noo. Kasi daw, sa kamay na lang daw. Kasi daw, natatakot daw ang mga tao na magkaroon ng parang brain damage or maapektuhan ng kanilang brain kapag ang thermometer, yung infrared thermometer na ganito, ay itinatapat sa noo. Okay? So, yun po ay isang example ng fake news. the infrared thermometer does not affect the brain. It cannot harm the brain, especially the pineal gland. It's a false claim. Okay? Fake news po yun. Kasi the infrared thermometer, non-contact infrared thermometer, is designed to detect and absorb heat. Hindi siya nag-i-emit ng radiation. Okay? Hindi palabas ang radiation. Gagawin yan, i-detect niya yung infrared energy na meron yung katawan natin. So, hindi siya nakakapag-cause ng damage sa ating brain. So, okay lang yan sa, na itatapat mo sa noo. Okay? Although ngayon kasi sa kamay na lang siya ginagawa. Madami siguro naniwala on this particular fake news. But, yeah, it is not true. The non-contact infrared thermometer does not emit any form of radiation. Therefore, it cannot cause any harm sa ating brain. Kasi it's for detection. So, yung mga ganong bagay, di ba? If we are scientifically literate, that allows us to be more analytical and critical about the information. Pero, one good side about this, although this is a little bit in the past, the information is a little bit in the past, according to Wellcome Global Monitor 2018, the Philippines is among the 19 countries where people most likely have high trust in scientists. So tayo, mga Pilipino, naniniwala naman tayo. That's a good thing, di ba? Naniniwala naman tayo sa sinasabi ng mga scientists or ng mga experts sa atin. I guess that's why okay din ang naging pagmamanage naman ng ating pandemic dito sa Pilipinas. Okay? Kasi naniniwala tayo sa mga scientists, sa mga experts. Okay? So that's a 32%. Technically, kahit siguro feeling natin mababa ang 32, pero it is already considered high, okay, for a trust in science. Pero, ito ang catch. Filipinos do trust the science as long as it does not agree with religion. Kasi once it disagrees with religion, kunwari magkaiba ang sinasabi ni religion at ni science, ang tendency ng mga Filipino is to choose religion over science. Okay? So 74% said they would choose religion when science disagrees with their religion. So mas mataas pa rin ang bearing sa atin ng religion over science. Okay? That one is part of culture and tradition. Diba? So scientific literacy isn't isolated from a range of other beliefs, may it be political, religious, epistemic, and beyond. It's these beliefs in conjunction, not scientific beliefs in isolation, that shape our actual decisions and our engagement in civic life. So you may have noticed all throughout the examples given, it's the knowledge in science plus our culture, our politics, and even how we perceive things will affect our decision making. So ang kailangan lang naman, ang sinasabi lang naman ng scientific literacy is we include the knowledge in science in our decision-making. Wag lang yung basta-basta tayo naniniwala sa mga information na nakukuha natin na hindi tayo nagdo-double check. Okay? Fact-checking is the idea. Now, once we are also scientifically literate, it would also allow for us to do some innovation. Okay, madaming innovation, lalo ng pandemic, ang daming mga bagong gamit, di ba? So, some of the innovations, this one is an example, it's a dining pods, di ba? A robot delivery. So, hungry, I can help. It's a robot delivery in the UK. Another one is instead of putting barriers, di ba dito sa atin, acrylic barriers yung ginagawa. Sa ibang bansa, ang ginagawa naman nila ay shield pod. So, nakahang yung barrier. Okay. This one, hands-free door handles. Kasi, sabi, di ba, lessen the contact sa hands. Okay. Na yung dapat like kang maghuhugas ng kamay kasi nga transmission. Yan, pag hindi ka basta-basta hawak sa mukha mo. So, syempre, dapat less din yung hahawakan mo with your hands. So, ang ginawa nila dito, still in a different country, is to put a bar wherein you can pull the door handle using your arm. So, hands-free. Hindi na yung kamay mo. Kasi, di ba, tendency natin, di ba, kung mangati yung mata mo, hahawak mo talaga sa mukha mo. To lessen contact with other things, yung kamay mo, hands-free. Okay? And of course, masks. Masks are a must nowadays. Hindi ka na pwedeng lumabas ng bahay na wala kang mask. Yan yung mga isang bagay na pumasok sa ating way of living this pandemic. Okay? Since masks are a must, right? It now led to a slight problem for those who are deaf and hard of hearing. Kasi part ng ginagawa nila para mas madali sila makipag-communicate is to lip-read. So dapat nakikita nila yung labi, di ba? Dahil dapat nakamask, hindi na ngayon, matatakpan na ngayon ng bibig. So an innovation done was to create mask that is see-through on the lip area. Ayan. So it helps those who are deaf and hard of hearing to communicate. So kahit simple innovation such as this na, diba? Innovation pa rin naman. And at the time when the cases were very high, there was a need to know kung nasaan ang hotspots ng mga COVID-19 cases. So and app developers in the PH created online innovations wherein they are tracking kung saan ang may mga matataas na COVID-19 cases. This one, not about the COVID-19, but this one is more for energy saving. Okay, the student received an award for her innovation on air conditioning. This is an air conditioning unit. Ito po. But instead of using the coolant, yung usual na parang freon sa mga aircon, ganyan, wala siyang ganong ginagamit. So kung walang ganon, lesser ang kanyang environmental effect. Negative environmental effect. Ang ginagamit nito ay ang water vapor. The water vapor in the air gets compressed and then ilalabas niya yung mas malamig na. Yun yung kanyang innovation. Okay? So this one's for energy saving. And of course, nung pandemic, dahil tayo ay na-stuck sa ating mga bahay-bahay, we learn to appreciate small things and be creative on how we can make ourselves happy. Sabi nila, dahil ng pandemic, less ang lumabas sa sasakyan, less ang air pollution, luminis ang hangin, luminis ang mundo. Diba? Nakita mo, lesser na ngayon, mas nakita mo na yung lights, kaso part of it, may mga lumabas na news na nakita mo na rin daw yung lines ng latitude and longitude, at nakita mo na yung barcode na nakalagay yung sa globe. Diba? So, mga katuwaan lang. So, sa sobrang linis ng hangin, sobrang linis ng langit, nakita mo na kung saan nakakabit yung globe. Yan yung bar. Okay? Mga katuwaan lang yan. Okay. So, science is one of our greatest tools for making a difference in the world. But we know that it isn't enough on its own. For science to have an impact, we need to understand the social and cultural context of the people we're trying to help and whether they feel science is working for them. So if we have innovation, syempre, kailangan natin i-consider, tanggap ba sa kultura nila yung ganong klaseng innovation? Okay? And sabi nga dito, we also need to ask whether the science is working or not for the people. Lastly, the pandemic that we currently face may not be the last. So without scientific literacy and as scientific literate citizens, we must consider that the lack of scientific literacy may cost more lives than a viral or a biological pandemic. Kasi kung ipipilit ng mga tao na hindi totoo ang COVID, kung ipipilit ng mga tao na ayaw nila magpabakuna, syempre, tataas ang transmission rate, mas madaming mamamatay, diba? Mas namatay ka pa sa hindi mo pagpaniwala dun sa virus kumpara sa dahil lang sa hindi ka sure kung ano ba talaga yung alam mo about it. With that, thank you very much for listening. Sa muli, ako si Shila Rose S. Pastor at sumainyo ang PNU Talks. Bye-bye!